Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Ranga. We are on page 300 in my book of the life divine. It's still supermind, mind, and the overmind Maya.
And the para begins with overmind in its descent. So, we are in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12th line from the top. We'll begin the sentence with mind separated acts. Okay? So, before that, he has told you some basic things like overmind is the consciousness just one level below the supermind. It is, you can see it in two ways. It is the highest spiritual plane before the supermind. You can't call supermind a spiritual plane. It is beyond spirituality also. So, it is the highest plane in the spiritual planes of consciousness when you climb up. The lowest plane in the spiritual planes of consciousness is the higher mind. So, here Srimad is going to describe and make the difference between the separating line at the higher mind level and at the overmind level. Okay? So, it says, when the overmind descends, again the descent, why should it descend at all? Because there is a involution, and when you want to manifest yourself, you have to limit yourself, make yourself limited, make yourself a form. So necessarily it's a descent. From the highest level of subtlety, you descend into denser and denser fields until finally you arrive at matter. But here he is discussing the mind, supermind and the overmind. So, the overmind when it descends, it first reaches the intuitive mind. Then it goes to the illumined mind. And then it comes to the higher mind. Now, the higher mind, these four planes are the spiritual planes of consciousness. Below the higher mind is a normal mind of matter. Your mind and my mind, where logic is necessary and analysis is necessary. The overmind does not work by, neither the overmind nor the spiritual planes of consciousness, they don't work by analysis, they work by synthesis. They see the truth. They don't need to use logic. Okay? So now, we'll read that.
Now, what about reason?
Pardon?
Reason.
Reason is the highest capacity of the normal mind. It is that which analyzes and comes to conclusions, but when it wants to understand something, it cuts up, sees each part and then tries to build a whole, but it's an artificial building. It's a constructed unity. It's not the real unity which you see the whole and the organic whole. You don't see the organic whole. Okay, so now we'll read the just before that also he has said that the dividing line between supermind and overmind is a very thin veil and it is translucent. In other words, it's much easier to descend from supermind to overmind and also more easy to ascend from overmind to supermind, relatively. Okay, it's not that easy. But it is much more difficult to, at the lower level between our normal mind, which is reason at its highest, and higher mind. That veil is much, much thicker. That's what he has told you. There it is thinner, here it is thicker.
How difficult is it from the intuitive mind to overmind?
I suppose it depends on the effort of the individual, and it also depends upon the nature of the individual. So it's not something fixed, and it's not like a rule or a regular law. It depends on the individual and the circumstances. Now, I said it is easier, and Srimad also is saying it is easier from overmind to supermind. But it took a long time for Srimad to do that. From 1926 up to 1950, of course he was in touch with the overmind, but not stabilized in it, probably. We are not sure of that. Because he says in one letter to Nirodha, I've caught the tail of the supermind and I'm pulling it.
I've caught it by the tail,
Yeah.
yes.
And Narada asks him, if you have not got the supermind, how do you know about it? So he says, you logical baby, one can experience it, but one need not achieve it. So that's the difference. So now we read that one. So, mind separated acts as if it were an independent principle. Mind separated means your normal mind. Because at the higher mind level, mind is not really separated. It is almost united. So it's not mind separated, it is the normal mind. Acts as if it were an independent principle, and each mental being, each basic mental idea, power, force, stands similarly on its separate self. So when you come to the normal mind, your power is different from mine, your mind, your thoughts are different from mine, your emotions are different from mine. Separation is complete. But the moment you go to the overmind level, if you are lucky, you will get the cosmic consciousness. You will see that there is basically no difference between your emotion and my emotion. There will be a quantitative difference, but not a qualitative difference. Okay? So, everything becomes different. Mind, life, body. Mind, knowledge, thoughts. Vital, emotions, sensations, and the body, actions. They all differ from person to person because separated. Mind has separated itself. Even the separation is not real, but seeming.
When you say quantitative, you mean in capacity, volume?
When I say qualitative, I mean essentially. In essence. Just like, essentially, all the mangoes on one tree are essentially the same. But are they really the same? No. Each one is different. Different size, different shape, different color, maybe even different taste a little bit. So that's what I mean by essential.
Okay. And quantitative?
One mango big, one mango small, one mango different color.
Yes, okay.
Okay? So, each mental idea, power, force stands similarly on its separate self. If it communicates with or combines or contacts others, it is not with the Catholic universality of the overmind movement on a basis of underlying oneness, but as independent units joining to form a separate constructed whole. Okay? So
yeah, that's what you basically told us.
Yeah, that's right. That is exactly. So, if I feel very sympathetic to you, even if I don't agree with you, still we agree to differ and yet we live in harmony with each other. Okay? This is a constructed unity. It's a constructed harmony. But at the overmind level, it's not constructed. It is automatic. You see the truth of the other person and you see this, and you don't have to make an effort or construct anything. It's automatically harmonious with each other.
But it seems that at our present stage in Oroville, we have to go for a constructed harmony first.
So long as you are at a mental level, it is constructed harmony. But even constructed harmony is better than no harmony at all.
True.
But of course it is constructed harmony. Okay? Constructed harmony, by the very definition of construction, it can also be destroyed. So today it may last for some time, and day after tomorrow it may disappear. Okay? So that's exactly what's happening with NATO. NATO is a North Atlantic Treaty Organization. They had a nice understanding that we'll all stand together and support each other. Now Russia has come and occupied, and they had promised Ukraine that we will make you also a member, and now each one is backing out. No one wants to go and help directly. So this is a big problem.
Well, it was an empty promise.
Yes. That's what they are.
Because you don't put NATO on the doorstep of Russia.
That's right.
It was a big mistake.
Yes. And in fact, now they have seen that wherever they enter, they have always failed. See, they went to Vietnam, America particularly, flexing its muscles, went to Vietnam, lost the war. Went to Afghanistan, lost the war. Went to Iraq, could not do anything. So every time they are entering a different country, they are not being able to succeed. So now that's one of the reasons why he's so careful about going into another one. There are many reasons for that, but today war is becoming more and more difficult to win. Even Russia is finding that. They were expecting Russia to just walk over and maybe 1 week, 10 days they would have finished the whole thing, but he's not being able to do it. Now I think 21st day it is entering. So constructed harmony, something that is frail, not dependable and can easily, but at the overmind level it is real harmony. Much more real than the constructed harmony. But there is one thing. Difference is there. Just like an orchestra. The orchestra is a very good image. 100 instruments, each one playing a different tune and different instrument and different sound. And yet there is perfect harmony. So that's the overmind. In the supermind, the unity and the harmony is much, much more fundamentally real. Maybe we can't even speak about it. Okay, we go back to the text. So, it is not with the Catholic universality of the overmind movement. The word Catholic here, very often you shouldn't make a mistake with the religion.
Universal.
It means wide-minded and liberal. That's what it means. Liberal oneness, universality of the overmind movement. On a basis of underlying oneness, not a superficial oneness, but an underlying oneness, more essential. The foundations itself are based on oneness. Underlying is a very interesting word. It's not superficial, it is underlying. All constructed harmony is superficial. But as independent units, joining to form a separate constructed whole. It is by this movement that we pass from the cosmic truth into the cosmic ignorance. So, this passing from cosmic truth to cosmic ignorance is at the normal mind and the higher mind. The higher mind, even then there is some element of truth. But the moment you come down into the normal human mind, you are in ignorance. Pakka ignorance. Of course, there is a trace of ignorance even at the overmind level, Srimdu says. Okay, so maybe that's what he's saying. We'll have a look now. The cosmic mind on this level, no doubt, comprehends its own unity, but it is not aware of its own source and foundation in the spirit and can only comprehend it by the intelligence, not in any enduring experience. It acts in itself as if by its own right and works out what it receives as material without direct communication with the source from which it receives. Its units also act in ignorance of each other and of the cosmic whole, except for the knowledge that they can get by contact and communication. The basic sense of identity and the mutual penetration and understanding that comes from it are no longer there. It's, as usual, those sentences are so big, we have to go phrase by phrase. So, the cosmic mind, he is talking of the cosmic mind which includes the overmind as well as the higher mind. The cosmic mind on this level, okay?
Oh, it includes the overmind down to the higher mind.
Yes.
The cosmic mind.
The cosmic concept, definitely it is there, okay, on this level. No, but the moment you come down to a normal reason, it's not cosmic anymore. It's individual. It acts in itself as if by its own right and works out what it receives as material without direct communication with the source. That's what we think. We think that what I am thinking is created by me, independently of anything else. Actually, it's not true. The universe is sending thoughts into you and you are only giving it a shape, individual shape. But it is not true that you are creating the thought. The universe is definitely putting thoughts into your head. Okay, so. But it is not aware of its own source and foundation of the spirit and can only comprehend it by the intelligence. We can understand intellectually that yes, I accept that maybe universe is making my mind have thoughts, making my mind, my vital have emotions, and making my body act. I accept that. But I don't understand it. It's not an enduring experience. It's just a concept. Yes, I can understand. But it's not real. It's an image only that you understand.
So I have a question. If this universal force gives thoughts, ideas, everything to humans, where do these forces like Rakshasas and Pisachas come in and give things to the brain?
The Rakshasas and the Pisachas are usually at the vital level. Okay? But there are three Rakshasas, Pisachas, and one more word is
The Asuras.
the Asuras, exactly. So there's the Pisachas are physical vital beings, very, very elemental creatures. Okay? And the Rakshasas are at the vital level, in the vital world. And the Asuras are more in the mental vital level. So there's a gradation in those three. Srimad explained that somewhere.
And do they also put thoughts into people's heads?
They are too busy with their own. They obstruct rather others.
They
They are
obstruct.
not the ones that is creating thoughts and emotions. It is universal nature which is doing that. It is universal nature which creates all these planes and is making everything individual according to its universal forces. Just like the tree is growing because of nature. So exactly in the same way, nature also creates a human being. But the human being thinks that he is acting on his own because he has an ego. The tree does not think that I am acting by myself, I am growing up. It doesn't think that because it doesn't have an ego. But we think we are doing everything ourselves because we have an ego. So that's one of the big discoveries of yoga, that when you realize that you are doing nothing at all, you are not the doer, you are only a silent watcher, and the rest is being done by universal nature. That's one of the biggest achievements that you get. When you separate yourself from body, mind, life, you are not the doer of action. You are only the watcher.
And we've read already that Sri Aurobindo speaks even of the genius.
Yeah.
That he receives something, but he thinks it's his own.
Yes, that's right. So
And
genius is receiving more consciously than an ordinary man.
But it's still ego when he says,
Yes.
it's mine.
Oh, ego is there. All geniuses have egos. Okay. So it's a harmony at the mental level is intelligence, constructed intelligence, not an enduring experience. It acts in itself as if by its own right and works out what it receives as material without direct communication with the source. We are not aware of where it is coming from. It can come from nature, it can come from higher planes, it can come right from the Supreme, but we are not conscious of it. We feel that we are doing it, we are creating it. It acts in itself as if by its own right and works out what it receives as material without direct communication with the source from which it receives it. Its units also act in ignorance. Its units, the cosmic mind, units. So, you are a unit, I am a unit. Even animals also are units because they also receive thoughts, also act in ignorance of each other and of the cosmic whole, except for the knowledge that they can get by contact and communication. Now let's examine this. Its units, let's take you and me, okay? You are a unit, I am a unit. Also act in ignorance of each other. I don't know your thoughts and you don't know my thoughts. I don't know your emotions, neither you know my emotions. But I can communicate with you and get your info. Oh, you were angry that day? Okay. So, or I had this thought. We exchange thoughts. That's what he's saying in the end. That they can get by contact and communication. But if there's no contact and communication, total ignorance. I am ignorant of you, you are ignorant of me. You are a unit, I am a unit. Its units also act in ignorance of each other and of the cosmic whole. We are not even conscious of the cosmos, except for the knowledge that they can get by contact and communication. The basic sense of identity and the mutual penetration and understanding that comes from it are no longer there. When you are in the higher mind or the overmind, the mutual penetration is there and understanding that comes from it are no longer there. In the physical world, no contact, no mutual penetration. You were asking about consciousness. At the higher levels of consciousness, your consciousness becomes so subtle and my consciousness becomes so subtle that they can merge. That is what is meant by knowledge by identity. Okay? That is what is meant. The substance actually merges and becomes one. See, two stones cannot become one because it's too dense. So, you have a matter and I have also a matter. Very difficult at our level to understand each other perfectly except by communication and contact. Come to water. Take 2 glasses of water. They can become one because they are subtler. Right? One is blue, one is red, but I can mix them and they become something else. When you come to air, again it's subtler. So, when you are in the spiritual planes of consciousness, your consciousness is so subtle that it can merge and become one. That is what is meant by Sri Aurobido's consciousness and Mother's consciousness is the same. That is what is meant. The substance of the two is one. There is no difference. Okay? So, that should also help you with your consciousness. Okay? So, we go to the next. All actions of this mind, energy, proceed on the opposite basis of the ignorance and its divisions, and although they are the results of certain conscious knowledge, it's a partial knowledge. It is not true and integral knowledge. It is not a true and integral world. It is not a true and integral world knowledge. This character persists in life and in subtle matter and reappears in the gross material universe, which arises from the final lapse into the inconscience. So, he is saying this, all actions of the mind energy proceed on the opposite basis of the ignorance and its divisions. And although they are the results of a certain conscious knowledge, it is a partial knowledge. He is talking of the overmind. In the overmind, it operates, mind energy operates on the opposite basis of ignorance. There is knowledge, but it's a partial knowledge. That's why he calls even the overmind, however high the spiritual consciousness may be, it is still seeing the multiplicity and not seeing the essential oneness. That's only in the supermind. The integral knowledge, the true and integral knowledge is only in the supermind, and not a true and integral world knowledge. This character, the character of the ignorance, persists in life and subtle matter and reappears in the gross material universe, which arises from the final lapse into the inconscience. Overmind descends and becomes the final lapse, it becomes inconscience. So the gradation he has told you. First there is supermind where knowledge is integral. Then you come down to the overmind, you start seeing the oneness, but you also start seeing the multiplicity. As you keep coming down, oneness slowly disappears and multiplicity goes on increasing. You start seeing the separateness of things. At our mental level, we see only separateness, we don't see oneness. We can conceive of oneness, but we can't experience it.
Yes.
In life and mind and physical, the separation is complete. Each one is acting as though they are independent units. This is what he is saying. Now, he is talking of another mind. He is talking of the subliminal mind. Okay? So, it's a very long para. Yet, as in our subliminal or inner mind, so in this mind also, a larger power of communication and mutuality still remains. A freer play of mentality and sense than human mind possesses. And the ignorance is not complete. A conscious harmony and interdependent organization of right relations is more possible. Mind is not yet perturbed by blind life forces or obscured by irresponsive matter. It's a plane of ignorance, but not yet of falsehood or error. Or at least the lapse into falsehood and error is not yet inevitable. He's speaking of the overmind, okay? And comparing it to the subliminal mind. We'll discuss that. It's a plane of ignorance, very clearly he's saying, but not yet of falsehood and error. Note that. What's the difference? Ignorance is less knowledge, but not wrong knowledge. Okay, so interesting. Less knowledge, but not wrong knowledge. But not yet of falsehood or error. At least the lapse into falsehood and error is not yet inevitable. This ignorance is limitative, but not necessarily falsificative. There is limitation of knowledge, an organization of partial truths, but not a denial or opposite of truth or knowledge. All this at the higher mind level. The overmind level. This character of an organization of partial truths on a basis of separative knowledge persists in life and subtle matter. For the exclusive concentration of consciousness force, which puts them into separative action, does not entirely sever or veil mind from life or mind from life from matter, mind and life from matter. The complete separation can take place only when the stage of inconscience has been reached and our world of manifold ignorance arises out of the tenebrous matrix. Tenebrous matrix. These other still conscious stages of the involution are indeed organizations of conscious force in which each lives from its own center, follows out its own possibilities, and the predominant principle itself, whether mind, life or matter, works out things on its own independent basis. But what is worked out are truths of itself, not illusions or a tangle of truth and falsehood, knowledge and ignorance. But when, by an exclusive concentration on force and form, consciousness force seems phenomenally to separate consciousness from force, or when it absorbs consciousness in a blind sleep, lost in form and force, then consciousness has to struggle back to itself by a fragmentary evolution which necessitates error and makes falsehood inevitable. Nevertheless, these things too are not illusions that have sprung out of an original non-existence. They are, we might say, the unavoidable truths of a world born out of inconscience. For the ignorance is still in reality and knowledge, seeking for itself behind the original mask of inconscience. It misses and finds its results, natural and even inevitable on their own line, are the true consequence of the lapse. In a way, even the right working of the recovery from the lapse. Existence plunging into an apparent non-existence, consciousness into an apparent inconscience, delight of existence into a vast cosmic insensibility are the first result of the fall, and in the return from it, by a struggling fragmentary experience, the rendering of consciousness into the dual terms of truth and falsehood, knowledge and error, of existence into the dual terms of life and death, of delight of existence and the dual terms of pain and pleasure, are the necessary process of the labor of self-discovery. A pure experience of truth, knowledge, delight, imperishable existence would here be itself a contradiction of the truth of things. It could only be otherwise if all beings in the evolution were quiescently responsive to the psychic elements within them and to the supermind underlying nature's operations. But here there comes in the overmind law of each force working out its own possibilities. the natural possibilities of a world in which an original inconscience and a division of consciousness are the main principles, would be the emergence of forces of darkness impelled to maintain the ignorance by which they live, an ignorant struggle to know, originative of falsehood and error, an ignorant struggle to live, engendering wrong and evil, an egoistic struggle to enjoy, parent of fragmentary joys and pains and sufferings. These are therefore the inevitable first imprinted characters, though not the sole possibilities of our evolutionary existence. Still, because the non-existence is a concealed existence, the inconscience a concealed consciousness, the insensibility a masked and dormant ananda, these secret realities must emerge. The hidden overmind and supermind too must in the end fulfill themselves in this apparently opposite organization from a dark infinite. So, very big para.
And he's, to say.
Yeah. So, he's talking of the involution and the evolution. The involution, the supermind comes down to the overmind also slowly descends and comes down through 4 levels. Overmind, intuitive mind, element mind, higher mind. Then it descends into the ignorance, the normal human being, the normal human mind, life and body. When the mind is still something, you have a constructed knowledge, but life is practical knowledge. The animals gather knowledge of what is necessary to it. In matter, no knowledge at all. So, this is what he is describing, and then he is also making a difference between limitation and falsehood and error. Yeah, there is a limitation, but falsehood and error, at what stage do they come in? In fact, there is a very interesting chapter in Life Divine, the origin of evil. Where does it start? So there he says that when there is the involution, there is no evil. It's just a lessening. It becomes a diminution. It becomes limitation, delimitation. But when you are starting from the inconscient and going to the life level, evil comes in. Because when you are starting from knowledge, you know where you are going. You are coming down. But when you are going from ignorance, you don't know where you are going. So you take wrong paths. So that's where evil comes in. Evil is nothing but a wrong path. So that big chapter is the origin of evil and suffering and all that, but that's different. So now, it is also, he is talking now of the subliminal inner mind. So let's discuss that, okay? So, if a man thinks of himself as a house, okay? We are normally living on the ground floor. And the doors and windows are our senses. Because they allow me to look out into the world, okay? All our senses are allowing contact with the world. So you can compare them to doors and windows, okay? And what is it called? Skylights or what is it? So they are allowing you contact with the physical world. But you are sitting in your front room. That's the ground floor, your body, mind, life. But you can go to the terrace. Spiritual people are going to the terrace, the higher mind. Okay? And the plot is your own. So you can build a 3rd floor, 4th floor, 5th floor. How do you do that? By yoga. You have to build and the 3rd floor, what are they? Higher mind, element mind, intuitive mind. You can go right to the 7th floor, the super mind. It's not easy to do it, but you can do it. But that is one thing. Then there is a basement.
That's what I was...
Now the basement is the subconscious. Then below the basement is the foundation, the absolute rock bottom. That's the inconscience. Then you go inside your house. Okay? Now you are coming to the subliminal being. When you go inside your house, you have a plot 60-40 and the house is not occupied the whole Towards the end, you have a kitchen garden. Okay, it's open to the sky. It's your property, but it's open to the sky. So when you go deep into yourself, it's a subliminal mind, subliminal vital, and the subliminal physical, which you also call the subtle physical. So that's the inner mind. So that's like it's open to the sky. So in other words, when it is open to the sky, when you go into your inner being, your knowledge increases tenfold. But there can be mistakes. It is somewhat like, it's very interesting, but you could compare the subliminal mind, subliminal life, subliminal physical, you can compare it to the internet. You can get a lot of information if you go to the internet. But the only difference between the internet and the subliminal being is, subliminal being is pre-existent knowledge, everything is there. But the internet, you have to post it. If you don't post it, you won't get the information.
Now Mother speaks of Sri Aurobindo living in the subtle physical realms.
Yes. So he is available there. Subtle physical, he is living. It's almost physical. Subtle physical. So that's the inner. You are in contact with the universal. So you can get much more. So that's what. But Sri Aurobindo uses different words. He says inner mind, inner vital, inner physical. Or he also uses the word subliminal, mind, subliminal, vital, subliminal, physical. But he can also use the word true mind, true physical, true vital. Okay? So that's a subliminal. So there, Sri Aurobindo is saying, yet, as in our subliminal mind or inner mind, so in this mind also, which mind? Our mind. Also, a larger power of communication and mutuality still remains. A freer play of mentality and sense than human mind possesses. So, human mind is a normal mind. So this mind that he's talking about, the overmind. A freer play of mentality and sense than human mind possesses. And the ignorance is not complete. Ignorance is complete at our level. Even our level, ignorance is not complete. But ignorance is much more than knowledge at our level. But in the overmind, the knowledge is much more than the ignorance, but there is still a little bit of ignorance at the higher mind level. Conscious harmony and interdependent organization of right relations is more possible. Okay? Right relations and interdependent organization. The mutuality of beings and things is more understandable there at the highest level. That's why I just told you that when you go to the higher mind level, all the religions have truths in them. And they are complementary aspects of each other. There may be errors, but they are all complementary aspects of each other. All philosophies also are complementary aspects of each other. The interdependent organization of right relations is more possible. Mind is not yet perturbed by blind life forces. Our mind is perturbed by blind life forces, but not the overmind, or obscured by irresponsive matter. At our level, matter and our body and our vital is influencing our mind, but not the overmind. It does not. It is a plane of ignorance, but not yet of falsehood or error. So that's interesting. Limitation of knowledge is there, but not of falsehood and error. The falsehood of an error comes much lower down. Okay? Or at least the lapse into falsehood and error is not yet inevitable. Ignorance can be there, but not error. Can we understand that? Yes. Okay? Limitation of knowledge is there, but not error, not totally wrong knowledge. That's not possible at the overmind level, he's saying. Okay? So, not yet inevitable. This ignorance is limitative, but not necessarily falsificative. Very clear.
Is he speaking only of the overmind
Yes.
here? So the overmind is a plane of ignorance?
Yes. That's what he says. There. Because if you define ignorance as seeing the many, the many starts coming into the picture even at the ignorance level. So, if you remember, the triple status of supermind, if you think of it as an ocean, when the ocean is absolutely calm and silent and no waves are there, that is the first status of supermind. The second status of supermind, the waves start forming, the swellings are there. Okay? In other words, movement and creation. And the third, the waves become more pronounced. When you come down to the overmind level, the waves have almost become independent of each other. That's why the many are there. The one starts becoming the many. So, that is where ignorance comes in. Seeing the many is always an ignorance. You can see the unity, but ignorance is, the multiplicity is much more obvious in the overmind. Okay? So, it's a plane of ignorance, but not yet of falsehood or error. At least this lapse into falsehood and error is not yet inevitable. This ignorance is limitative, but not necessarily falsificative. But he's using the word necessarily. So it could be. Okay? Then there is limitation of knowledge and organization of partial truths, but not a denial or opposite of truth or knowledge. This is very clear. Okay? In other words, each religion, each philosophy has got an element of truth. And that truth is right. But it is not wrong truth. It's not falsehood. That's what he says. An organization of partial truths, but not a denial or opposite of truth or knowledge. This character of an organization of partial truths on a basis of separative knowledge persists in life and subtle matter for the exclusive concentration of consciousness force which puts them into separative action does not necessarily sever or veil mind from life or mind from matter. Let's understand this. This character of an organization of partial truths on a basis of separative knowledge persists in life and subtle matter. So subtle matter also there is. Each atom is there in subtle matter and it's ignorant of the others. Okay. Separative knowledge persists in life and subtle matter for the exclusive concentration of consciousness force which puts them into separative action does not entirely sever or veil mind from life or mind and life from matter. There is a connection between mind, life and matter. It's not absolutely separate. Where does the absolute separation come? He is telling you. The complete separation can take place only when the stage of inconscience has been reached and our world of manifold ignorance arises out of that tenebrous matrix. The total separation, the many, each atom becomes independent of each other in only inconscience. So, it's obvious from what he's saying here that he is including the spiritual planes of consciousness also about the ignorance. He's not talking only of those overmind, but he's talking of the supermind also.
All
The
those
spiritual planes of
planes,
consciousness.
yes. Okay.
They are partial knowledge. So, these other still conscious stages of the involution are indeed organizations of consciousness force in which each lives from its own center, follows out its own possibilities, and the predominant principle itself, whether mind, life or matter, works out things on its own independent basis. But what is worked out are truths of itself, not illusions or a tangle of truth and falsehood, knowledge and ignorance. So he is talking of the involution. By the way, one should be clear about this because he discusses it. In the involution, the planes of consciousness are pure mind, pure life, pure matter. But in the evolution, when you're coming, it's a sort of parallel world. It's not the same route. It's a parallel world. So, that's the evolution. And the characters of life, because there's a mixture here, there the worlds are pure in themselves. Okay? So, but what is worked out are truths of itself, not illusions or a tangle of truth and falsehood, knowledge and ignorance. The tangle of truth, falsehood and ignorance and knowledge and all that in the evolution upwards. But when by an exclusive concentration on force and form, consciousness force seems phenomenally to separate consciousness from force, or when it absorbs consciousness in a blind sleep lost in form, this is the inconscient, and force, then consciousness has to struggle back to itself by a fragmentary evolution which necessitates error and makes falsehood inevitable. So there you are. Very clearly, the falsehood and the error come when there is a starting point in the evolution, not in the involution. He's making that very clear. Okay? Nevertheless, these things too are not illusions that are sprung out of an original non-existence. They are, we might say, the unavoidable truths of a world born out of inconscience. By the way, we should maybe discuss a little bit as to why error and falsehood comes when you are starting from in the evolution and not in the involution. I think I mentioned that because in the involution, you are starting from knowledge. You know exactly where you are going. So there can be no distortion. But by the time you come to the inconscient, you have lost the consciousness, but still you have started from there. And you know that you are going to end up in the inconscient. But when you are going from inconscient, lack of knowledge, lack of power, you don't know where you are going. Because you are starting from ignorance. So you can go on the wrong track. It's like going through a forest, virgin forest, when you don't know where you are going. So you go this way and you find, my God, that path is full of snakes and thorns. I have to come back. Error. Then you go to another path. Slightly better path, but again there's a deep ditch there. So when in the evolution, falsehood and error comes in. It's an interesting thing what he's saying.
That's why we have to hold the mother hands. That's why we have to hold the mother hands and
yes,
take mother's hand.
That's right. Because you don't know where you're going. So ask her to lead you and make the path. Okay? Nevertheless, these things too are not illusions that are sprung out of an original non-existence. They are, we might say, the unavoidable truths of a world born out of inconscience. For the ignorance is still in reality and knowledge seeking for itself behind the original mask of inconscience. So, on the one hand, he's telling you that falsehood and error is there, and yet on the other hand, he's saying that it is not, it's a knowledge which is incomplete. Just like light and darkness. Light and darkness are not opposites. Light reducing itself becomes darkness. So knowledge reducing itself becomes ignorance. Okay? So for the ignorance is still in reality and knowledge, seeking for itself behind the original mask of inconscience. It misses and finds. There you are. Okay? It goes and misses and finds. Its results, natural and even inevitable on their own line, are the true consequence of the lapse. In a way, even the right working of the recovery from the lapse. So when you are going, it takes a long time, but you are recovering the right working from the lapse.